Hey guys, so today we're just going to take a look at some of the final bits of our typography tutorial. Now, the one thing that mentions in your rubric is the idea that you want to have at least 3 different silhouettes in a vector image, right? So if I were to look up, for instance, I've got a thing that mentions the word Falcon, right? So I look up Falcon, vector, silhouette, right? What I would get is something like this sort of bird, right? What you want is what looks like sort of like a cutout of like of some kind of thing that has to do with what it is you're talking about. So in this case, some of these things are not free. Some of these things are require some stuff. But this right here, what you're looking for, mostly you're looking for a PNG. So if I look up here, PNG, oh, not long, PNG. We can see something like this. This looks good, right? But you're looking for the little gray transparency grid. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, save image as, and I'll save it to my little typography folder here, and just use this as an example. You want 3 total, and I'll start pulling things into my Premiere file. All right, so I've got my folder open here with my vector eagle and my different phrases. So remember, these are all each a different phrase that we've saved onto different Photoshop files because we want them to all be layered, right? So I'm just going to one at a time bring them in, and I'll explain a couple things. Explain about the idea of of putting in the vectors, and I'll explain the idea of putting in the transitions that have them go out, because we want to have 3 different kinds. All right, so I'll do three total here. So I'll just drop in my audio here, and before I do anything, I'm just going to clip it down to about 30 seconds. So let me see if I can't find where it starts.
The second coming.
All right, so right about there's where he starts. I'll rip it, delete, and I'll get to about 30 seconds in. Let's see how that goes.
The second coming? Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight.
I'll stop it there. That's a good little stopping point. And whenever you find your stopping point, let's go ahead and go to Effects and go to Audio Transitions, find Crossfade, just one of these. They all sound the same to me, but Constant Power is the one that sort of defaults to it. So you can kind of hear how it fades out.
Troubles my sight.
All right. And it just sort of fades out. So this right here, he actually comes to a pause. So this doesn't really do a whole lot. But if you have music, you want it to fade out. If you have background noise, you don't want it to just stop suddenly. It's very jarring. You want it to fade out a little bit. So let's go ahead and look up here. So the first thing, the first phrase I'll put in, obviously, is the phrase 1. So I'll just drag that in. And its little pop-up is going to show up here asking me what I want to do with this. So I'm going to go from Merge All Layers to Sequence. Press OK. And I'll just open that up, double-click on that, and you'll see the different PSD files here, and then you'll see the sequence. You're looking for this little symbol here. Let me get my magnifier out so I can show you this little icon. It looks like a little family tree almost, just like a couple different spots, as opposed to this little film strip here. So you're looking for that little icon. That's your sequence. So if I were to double-click on that, it would open up a sequence over here. So we've got 2 sequences. We've got the sequence that we just started, and I can even go back to my project here and find this little button and just double click on this and rename it something like Typography 2, so I know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Typography 2, I'm looking at phrase 1 here. Now I want to get all the phrases, from all the words from this. A good way of viewing this, viewing every little bit, is to double-click where it says the title of the name of your file here. Double-click on that, and you'll see all the different elements there. And you can just kind of select them all, and you can right-click on them, copy them, and I'll just double-click one more time, and I'll go back to my Typography 2 here, and I'll just click off of my audio, and I'll just Control V, and they'll all pop in. Now, I'm going to make this a bit bigger down here, and I'm going to make this a bit bigger as well, so I can kind of push everything down, kind of approximate where that's going to fall, right about there. That's good. And I'll zoom in a good deal as well. And I want to be able to see the little peaks and valleys of my audio file, so I can really time this well. And I'll just time that up right there. Make it a little closer so you can drag it a little bit, because it's gonna try to snap to various moments, especially your time marker here. So let me just pull this over. That's good. All right, so right there is where I want it to start. So here's my background. My background's here. I'm going to actually extend my background the entire way. So let me click off, and I'll just extend my background the entire way. so I don't have to worry about the background. I'll just pull that across like so, and we'll just once again pull in, and I'm going to use my arrow keys here. So right there's where and starts. And then here, the little T, the little pop of the T. So you listen out for different tells as to when they're going to start a new word here. All right, that's about right where it starts in. The and widening is very fast, so there's the W sound you hear. There's the J sound. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll go over to where, right about here, and this is where we'll cut everything off. So I'll just, I'll zoom back out, and I'm going to select all these phrases here, all these little words, and I'm just going to pull them all back to right about there. And now, when we want to have them all exit at the same time, easy way of doing that is just to select them all, right-click on them, and nest them, and call this phrase 1. And then what we'll do is we'll create a little keyframe under Effect Controls, and this just turns them all into a single sequence that can be edited in union. And I'll just put my position right about there, and then I'll press the down button. Oops, I'll click this little V1, V2 here, and I'll press the down button so I can go to the very end of that. And then I'll just move the text one way or the other. So I'll probably just have it fly off this way. Like so, and let's see what that looks like. All right, so we want it to go all the way off before it disappears. So let's see, make sure we're on this keyframe here. I'll go over to like maybe 3,000. Here we go. Let's see what that looks like. All right, that's good. And then we're going to have our next little line here. Now this is the line where we hear about the Falcon. So let's go find phrase 2, and we'll drag that in. Make sure we set it to sequence. It's okay. And we're going to double click on that and find our sequence here. And in this case, we're going to select everything except the background. We don't want the background. So I'm just going to click on this, just hold these down, and I'm going to right click on them, copy them, and leave out the background. The background still needs to be pink, and we'll come back to Typography 2, and we'll just right here make sure that V2 is selected and V1 is not selected down here. This is blue, this is not. Control V, and then we can see our next thing. So once again, I'll use my arrow keys here. There's the Falcon. Oops. Falcon. Cannot. Here. And this is where we're going to include our first vector image here. So I'm going to have my stuff kind of fade out this time. So I'm going to select everything. And so just once again, we're going to pull everything down, right click on it, and we'll say nest. And we'll call this phrase 2. And we'll set up a keyframe here to have it fade. And we'll just click on opacity. We'll have our opacity set a keyframe here for 100%, and then we'll press down and another keyframe here and set it down to 0. So it'll fade out really, real easily. And then right about here, this is where I want my Falcon to come in. So I'm going to find my Falcon PNG, and I'm going to pull this in. And then I'll just drag this in. I'll drag this into like layer 1. Right about here is where I want it to start. And so there's my Falcon. I'll make this a bit bigger. I can't make it too terribly bigger because I don't want it to be really blurry. But I'll pull it right about there. That's good. And I'll cut this off right about here. So let me just get my little razor tool so I don't have to move around. And I'll just delete this. Okay, so I want this to kind of fly in and out. So I'm going to have him, well, first off, I don't like the way it's going. I want him to go this way. I want to go from left to right. So I want him to turn him around. So I'm going to go over here to my effects. I'm going to find video effects, find transform, and I'm going to say horizontal flip, and I'll just put it right on there so it'll flip around. And I'll have him go from left to right, like we're reading left to right. And so I'm going to get my position up here. I'll click my little keyframes, and I'll have position. Double click here, and I'll just sort of drag him up this way. And then I'll put right about here, I'll have him fly in right about there. Because our keyframes are selected, we can see that he's we're creating a new keyframe, and at the very end I'm going to have him fly out this way to the end here. So let me I'll have that so I can this right here, and I'm gonna ease him in. So just so I can put this, I'll just select both of all three of these here. Hold down Shift and select each keyframe, right-click on them, temporal interpolation, and then Auto Bezier. And then I'll just put this little arrow down. I'm going to see if I can't kind of extend these down to see if I can have them sort of swoop in here. See how this looks. There you go. That's good. And I can even slow this down a little bit more here, so I can have this maybe even pull this up a little bit. Let's see what that looks like. And you can just one at a time adjust the different ones if you wanted to like sort of adjust this one and have it go really fast there, or maybe like really start really fast and then have this slow down. And have this go speed. So let's say like this. There we go. And then we'll start the next phrase here. So we have a fly out, we have a fade out, and then the last what we're going to do is a zoom in. And so we have the next line here, so let's find our phrase 3, and I'll drag that into my little import here. So if we've got too many of these phrases up here, you can't find your original typography 2 thing, these little arrows here and find project, typo 2, and this will show up our phrase 1, phrase 2, and then we'll have our different sequences here as well. But we want to have these are our nested sequences that we pulled in, and so this is our typography 2 right here. So let's go ahead and get our third phrase dragged in. And once again, select sequence, press OK. And I'm going to find my phrase 3. Oh, I dragged in phrase 2. Oops, let me give it phrase 3. Did I get phrase 3? Here we go. I'll double click on phrase 3 here. And I'll double click on this phrase 3 right here. And I'll just select my words and leave my background out. And right click and copy. And then I'll come over here and I'll paste, Control V, and let's see if I can't find where this ends. So things fall apart. That's about right about here, and I'll just pull this to the side, and I'll see if I can't animate these. So things fall. Oops. Control Z here. And fall apart. And then here is where I'll nest these together, and I'll nest these, and I'll call this phrase 3, and I'll have them get bigger. I'll zoom in, and I'll have them kind of blur out as they zoom in, so I can kind of disguise that pixelization that's inevitably going to happen here. So I'll just click on here, and I'll click Scale, and I'll go from scale from like 100 to about 1,000 at the very end here. 1000, and let's see what happens here.
Things fall apart. The center.
All right, and so what we'll do is we'll have this blur out substantially as well. So I'm going to go over here to my effects, and I'll find under video effects, blur and sharpen. I'm just going to find camera blur, or I'll find Gaussian blur, and I'll just pull that in here. And we'll have it start here for our blurriness. We'll start blurriness at 0, and we'll pull it up to, say, 95 or something like that. So hopefully it'll start to, so let's look at this.
Things fall apart. The center.
And that looks good. All right, so let's take a look at this from the beginning here. This is, I'm about 1/3 of the way, or maybe 1/4 of the way through here.
Turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart.
Okay, and so that's the general idea. So you're just going to do that. So it's pretty simple to have them all put in, all the different phrases to put in, and then to time them, especially if you can see your peaks and valleys. So you can set this up. Once again, I'm under editing, and if you don't see what I'm seeing, you can always right-click here, or you click this little hamburger menu and find reset to save layout. At any point, if you want to get rid of these, you can hit this little X button that's up there to declutter those, and you can close out the different projects or close out the different bins up here. Right click on close this panel, and I can close the various different panels. Phase 3, I can close out this panel, and it's not going to affect anything up here. And once again, if ever you're dissatisfied with the way any of these look, for instance, if I don't like the way that red is on turning, I can open up phrase 1, and I can actually edit it in Photoshop, save it, and it'll change inside Premiere. So that's the thing you can do. So anytime you find you don't like the way something looks, you can change them, and they'll update live. All right, well, cannot wait to see what you guys produce. This is going to be due Friday, so make sure we're up on this. And you're going to need 3 of these, the 3 instances where either it flies out in unison, it fades out in unison, or and it zooms in. So each one of those things you need, and then you need 3 different little vector images. So well, let me just show you this real quick. I'll just double click on this here, and I'll just turn this. Oops. Just turn this black, and then I'll save this, and then I'll go back here and I'll see that it's turned it's no longer red. So I don't have to do anything here. I can just change it in Photoshop and it'll be fine right there. All right, well, let's go ahead and save this, and obviously at some point you're going to want to export it, but let me just show you something real quick. When I go to File, Export, Media, I'm always looking for this down here, this little number. This little number down here, I want it to be around 50 megabytes. So if I get too many graphics in there, it may go higher than that, so between 50 and 70 or so. So, medium bit rate's gonna reduce that down a good deal, all right? So I'm gonna export it now because it's not quite done. But yeah, so 30 to 45 seconds, or somewhere around 50 megabytes in final size as an MP4. That's how I want it to be exported. All right, very good.